Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And today we're going to be looking at the new Ais Wallenstein from the Danmachi collab, the single target DPS character for the Danmachi team. Few things to note before we really get into it is that she does have free gear that is acquired from the Aurelio Blacksmith Workshop. You get these crystals, and you take them to the forge, and you make them and upgrade them from there using those black crystals. And then there's also, if you pulled her, the combat training event, which does give you a free shard of ice. You do have to pull her first, though, in order to use this. This is not an initial copy like the Shuna. It is only a shard. But going back into Ice, just in case you were not aware of what her kit is, she's a single target damage character. Her first skill gives her a better version of Drago, multi-hit, guaranteed dodge, and another 100% wind attack for 3 turns. And then her second skill stacks weakness strike and wind attack for everybody by 10%, and that increases by 1% every time you use a skill. And her team uses lots of those, so you can cap out at 30% weakness strike and 30% wind attack every time you use this skill once you've used like 20 other skills. If you do pull her and you feed that shard in, you do get access to her trait, which unfortunately is just extra pierce power. It's not as good as some other traits could have been, so that's kind of a downer there. But she's going to do a butt ton of damage on the Danmachi team, and on other teams too, that you can use her on. She's not really going to do anything else, though. She's not here to support other units. She's just here to nuke the crap out of people. So, let's go watch her do that. Alright, so we're going to take her onto the collab team. Hestia, Shuna, Bell, Soka, Ice, and then we brought Freya in for the ult damage and the synergy rate, and that's just something a little bit extra. You could really put anyone you want here. But this team is built for her. We want to use a lot of skills. We've got the multi-skill. We've got low-cost skills with Belle and Ryu and herself, so this will allow us to really stack up quickly, but it's going to take forever, so I'm going to pre-record this and then voice it over if you don't mind. That way we're not here for like 30 minutes. Alright, we're going to go at hyperspeed here, because this team, just like Divine General, takes kind of forever to run. But we're going to use 4 skills here. The Belle stat, the green buff, the free stack of Pierce Power from Belle, Ice's own skill, and then that will put us at 14%, because we've used 4 skills leading up to that. So every time we use a skill, we get an extra 1% for the wind attack, 1% for the weakness strike, 14%. And it caps out at 30. So we got to use 16 more skills to get there, right? Right? 16? Math is hard? Yes, 16. Okay. But orb changing, green buff, the Bell status, the Bell stacks, these are all things that you're going to use naturally. So it's not like you're going out of your way to try and stack that. You're gonna use a lot of skill points with this team if you're running like the full meta. And even this hand, it doesn't look that great, but we have Soka, so we could actually convert with her and get a little bit of her stack as well. So we don't have to use anything with Freerin. We just brought her in for turn 2 traits. Soka can come in. We'll use the orb change and then her stacking buff and debuff. We'll bring Shuna in. We'll use the green buff again. We'll use the Bell stack, and then we'll do another stack of ice, which is now going to be up to like 21%, 22% or something, because we use a lot of skills with this team. So it's not difficult to do this here. It'll be difficult to use in other team settings where you don't have multi-skill. You don't have that many skill points to pull from every single turn, because you don't have a protector giving you 110 every single time you friggin' use them or something. So you can get that stacked up in a meaningful way very quickly. Ice has an ult now. There's the convert for Hestia. We'll ult swap her away. We'll green buff again. We'll reapply the Bell status. And then we could do Hestia one more time. That'll give us another 110. And then we could do other things here. So let's take Shuna out. Let's use Hestia. Let's get some Soka stacks in here now. And a lot of other things. So boom. And then do it again. Do her and Bell or something like that. And then, yeah, we'll bring Freerin in. And we could use just a Bell stack. So we're going to wait on stacking more with Ice until we get some extra points. And we get her EX ult. Because she doesn't have to be up front for the other buffs to apply to her. But if you want to continue to stack with her own skill, she does have to be up front, obviously. But now it's turn 4. We have very close to an alt, but we have a lot of ice orbs right here, so that's good. So let's bring in Shuna. Let's go ahead and alt swap away, because we do want her to leave her up here, but that also does alt rush her up to her EX alt, so the orbs are unnecessary. But I do want to get her up here, because turn 6, we're going to use her big time buff, because it lasts for 3 turns. And if you put her in the back, it'll last for as long as you want, because it's a status that you keep on yourself. And if you never let the status run its course of turns, you could just hold on to it. You don't have to use it on turn 8. You could use it on turn 12 if you wanted, as long as you leave her in the back. But that also means that you won't really be able to benefit a lot from her skill points and her buffs, because unless you're swapping her in and out and doing a whole lot of maintenance on the team kind of playability, which can be kind of annoying for people. So here, it's turn 5. We don't have to use her now, but I do want to use the Freerin magic state, because it'll just help us do a little bit extra damage here. And it's yet another skill. But by this point, we've used so many skills on this team that we have capped out Ice's own 30%. So we could just keep using that over and over and over and over and over now, if we have the points, but it does get quite expensive. But we are getting permanent alt damage with Bell, we're getting permanent pierce power, we're getting permanent element attack from Hestia, which does stack alongside the aerial effect for Ice, because it specifically says stacks with other status effects of the same type. So Hestia's permanent wind attack plus the wind attack we're getting from the actual stacking skill of Ice, plus the actual aerial skill itself that we're going to use here after we use Hestia, we're going to get 100%, which is actually 125, because of the extra aerial effect, which enhances buffs by 25%. So let's do that skill. Boom, 100%. The multi-skill, it's not super important here, or the multi-hit on her orbs, not important, because this orc doesn't have a barrier, but once you go into Inferno 1, he does have a barrier, which you might want to use the multi-hit skill for. And you could freely leave her up front, because you can hold on to the buff for multiple turns. And that is something that's very useful. So this hand, a lot of bells. This is going into turn 7. This is the second to last turn before we nuke. And we'll have another EX ult for Bell. We're going to just hold on to points here. We haven't really been able to stack that much, because we have so many skills that now cost so many points. And in order to be ready for the nuke, we want to make sure we have enough to do Bell's skill and Freerin's skill, and maybe like another ice skill or Soka, depending on what you want to do. But there's the magic state kicking in for the element down. That just helps our damage out. And then there's the convert from Hestia. We'll bring Freerin in and use her alt buff and the guaranteed synergy. And then we'll bring Ice in. And then with Hestia, we have pretty much enough points to do everything we want to here. So let's do the Bell stack. Let's do the Ice stack, which you can see is now fully at 30%. And then we'll use Hestia again. And we really can't do anything else. So we are looking at 100% alt damage. That's from the Bell alts. We've got 120% from Freerin. Alright, cool. And then looking at the actual buffs on Ice, you can see that we have these weird decimal point numbers now, and that's because we're increasing everything by 25%. And sometimes that's not a perfect number. So Pierce Power, 187.5. Being enhanced by the aerial effect, it should have been like 50% or something like that. Weakness Strike coming from her own skill, and the alts 478%. Wind Attack 528%. That is coming 1 from Hestia and 2 from Ice's personal buff as well. And then moving down, we have Magic Attack. We have the other elemental attacks coming from Hestia, which don't really apply to us because we're wind. And then we have the 125% wind attack from the aerial skill itself. So we've got 3 different instances of wind attack being applied to Ice, and they all are effective and all are useful. And then we have our guaranteed pierce and synergy and the evasion, which we haven't really seen used here because she's been in the back while the skill is active. But all of that means, alongside the resistances here, she's going to do a lot of damage. And this team is not a perfect team. It's not whole, like super big damage, but she's going to do enough. because this orc only has 10 million HP, and Ice is about to drop like 100-ish? 100 million damage? Yeah, 100 million. Guaranteed synergy, guaranteed pierce. Which, we could definitely get higher than that. During the summon stream and the testing, I got her up to like almost 500 million damage. So her ceiling is quite high. But she's not really doing anything for anybody else in any significant way. Sure, 30% weakness strike for people is cool, but all these other characters are support units. They don't do a lot of damage to begin with. And then the wind attack really only applies to her because she's the only wind character. So it's just, she's going to be good at being very selfish and being given a lot of buffs. And if you can use a lot of skills to get her personal skill, her stacking skill buffed up even more, then that's great. But other traditional teams are going to maybe struggle a bit. So let's test her out on a different team now. Okay. Ice is also on Exalted Champions, and thankfully we have the Exalted Champions Limited Time Chamber of Memories stage, so I figured we could take her in here and see what she can do with her old 2.5 anniversary team, alongside Visions of Coleus Violet. The only annoying part about this fight is that there is a body and spirit seal that Dino puts on. That is kind of annoying, so it means that if we don't use her skill on turn 2, we're going to have to go until turn 5, and then we don't really get to see the full benefit of that. So let's try and use it early. Actually, instead of bringing you, I might just bring Blanc instead, because that'll give us the access to the extra 40 skill points. So let's just go along with this. Obviously, Blanc is better than Violet in terms of damage support, and the skill cost is almost the same. But this just means that we actually can use the Ice skill for multiple turns, because it lasts again for 3. So we could have guaranteed dodge here, and maybe that could be useful? Question mark. But let's do the orb change, and then that's 1 skill right there. Let's bring Ice in, and then we could use her skill turn 1 as well, which will just be a straight up 11%, because we've only used 1. But any additional damage is helpful, but since this is not a multi-skill team, we're never really gonna see multiple stacks of like the full 30%, because we just simply don't have enough points. We don't have enough skills that cost low enough that have low enough costs that we can use multiple times in one turn to get that stacked up quickly. So here, we got 115 points, cool. So let's do the big time buff, so we don't have to worry about it being sealed right here. And then we'll use the Blanc 40 points. And then we'll bring in actually no, we'll bring in Veldora, sorry. And then we'll use the green buff now. Boom. We'll use the Alt Rush? Question mark? Yeah, we'll use the Alt Rush skill. And that. So then we don't have enough points to use another stack of the Ice skill, but we could probably do it next turn. And because in the wording of the skill, the wind buff stacks alongside other buffs, stacks with other similar effects, if we go look at her right now, it is 20% wind attack right here from her own personal stack. It's 125% from the aerial skill that's being increased by the Drago effect. And then there's also the quote-unquote 50% wind attack that we get from Velzard, which is also being enhanced by Ice's own skill, so it's up to 62.5. So all of these buffs are working together, so she has quite a bit of wind attack going for her right now. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then her 200% orb. Unfortunately, we only got 1 orb for her, but it's going to have the multi-hit as well. So you see the little 37k damages pop up, and we, again, only have 1 orb for her. Cool, but there's the seal, but now we don't have to worry about it because we're ready to go, essentially. And it lasts for 3, so we could leave her for this turn and then send her away and then nuke on turn 5 and we'll still be good. So we have a lot of points, so let's do another Veldora orb change just because we can. And then we'll bring EC Rimuru in. We'll use his alt swap ability. Boom, that's a skill, that counts. And then we could use the Alt Rush and then another stack of Ice. And this is how we're going to get the most out of it, by waiting and trying to maximize our skill point usage. Now we're up to 19% extra weakness strike and wind attack. Velzard for the full hand of greens, and the Drago effect, which again is being not utilized because the ice effect is already more powerful. So we don't see the Drago right here. We just see the aerial activated. Whereas on Guy, we're going to see that Drago effect down here, Drago. But Drago is just 5% weaker, so our own personal buff will overshine that. Outshine it. Overwrite it. Overlap it. One of those words. It's not going to show up. Moral of the story. Okay, so this is the last turn that she has that, but you could see the evasion right there. Dino tried to hit us, and it didn't. But it did not protect us against the actual seal itself, so there's some science for you. If you thought the 100% evasion would protect you from enemy debuffs and sealing skills, it does not. They will still be applied. It is just negating any normal attacks or ults that an enemy will send towards ice. And it's only for her, it's not for anybody else. So let's do the attack buff, let's do the synergy buff, boom, boom, and let's do... let's do another stack of the wind attack. It's gotten a little better now. We'll take her out, we'll take Guy out, we can have a full hand of buffed up greens because we have to use the Veldora buff again. And then Velzard, and then we'll nuke on turn 5. And we'll most likely kill Dino. How much health does he have? 5.9 million. Yeah, we should be okay, but should being the key word. We only have to use one skill here, though, and that's block. So we definitely have enough to nuke now. We've been holding on to the aerial effect, we've held on to the attack buff and the synergy buff. 154 points. Let's go ahead and use that, plus the extra 20 points from Blanc, because it's another skill, and it will allow us to probably get at least one more use out of her stacking buff. And then let's bring Guy in for Veldora. And that's probably all the points we have access to, because that costs 60 now. So we're up to 26%. So again, not really going to see the full 30% and multiple stacks of 30, but we can definitely still benefit off of it, because now we're going to have quite a few things going for us that are going to be enhanced by the aerial effect. So we've got wind attack 103%. That is from the stacks of Ice's own personal skill. We've got the weakness strike, also from Ice. We've got the aerial wind attack 125. We've got pierce power from a trait. We've got the attack buff from Rimuru up to 87 now. We've got synergy power up to 50%. And then the magic attack damage 125, plus the extra element attack from Velzard being up to 62.5. So we have a lot of things going on here, and all of that means is he's gonna die. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 820k a hit, and then 6.5 million. She would have nuked him down from full HP. And that's not 100 million like we did last time, but this is a much more underpowered team compared to what we had earlier. So the damage drop-off is, not as important to take note of, I guess, is what I'm trying to get there. Alright, I think that's going to do it for Ice today. I've kind of got a full schedule, so I got to be quick about these right now. This weekend is a little bit busy. But as I've shown, I think Ice is a really, really good single-target DPS character. And I think that's about it. She needs a team built around her, whether it's an older team like Exalted Champions or the newer Dungeon Crawler Danmachi team. Like, yes, she is meant to be run as the primary focus, not in a supporting kind of role, because her support skills are lacking. She's meant to do damage. She's meant to have people giving her buffs, allowing her to get her stacks of her weakness strike and her wind attack, allowing her to sit there and just build up more and more and more damage so she can drop big-time nukes. But apart from that, I don't really see her being used on other teams in any other kind of format. And she's single target, which does limit her viability in a lot of other events like Jubilee Normals or Valor Cup or something. So she's going to be good at damage, but I think there's the potential that Ryu, coming out next week, may eclipse her in terms of both damage output being an AoE character, and also just skill set in general. Maybe Ryu won't be nearly as selfish. Maybe she'll have a bit more buffs that she can apply to multiple other teams. So overall, like, I would really only summon for Ice if you've got FOMO for a collab unit that's never coming back, or if it's waifu over meta. But otherwise, I think she's a fairly safe skip. But let me know in the comments what you guys think of this new Ais Wallenstein. Am I being a little bit too harsh on her, or do you think I'm kind of hitting it right on the head? Let me know your thoughts, but that's it from me. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.